Here are some really common short phrases on guitar using string bends. So I'm mainly using the A minor pentatonic scale here at the 5th fret. But I'll also be using this one at the 12th fret as well, the root's on the A string. Okay, so first off, when you're bending, a couple things to keep in mind. One, you want to get your finger as close to the fret as possible so that you've got a lot of leverage on that fret. I'm back. It's going to buzz a little bit, and if I bend, it's really going to buzz. So the other thing to keep in mind is you want to use 3 or 4 fingers for your string bends. So if the note on the pentatonic scale, ordinarily you'd play that note with your ring, then I want to put my index and middle fingers on that same string. This gives me a lot more strength and leverage to get that bend up high enough. So the other thing to keep in mind is when you're bending, you are bending to a specific pitch. So we have whole step bends, which bend up 2 frets. So I would want to bend this 7th fret note on the pentatonic to match that pitch. If I wanted to do a half step bend, I would want to bend the 7th fret to match the 8th fret. So on this pentatonic scale, on this shape where the root is on the E string, the best bending note is this ring finger note on the G string. And the reason for that is if I bend it up a half step, that note is in the blues scale. If I bend it up a whole step, those 2 notes are the same. Then I'm bending to the next note in the pentatonic scale. So essentially I can bend this note up a half step or a whole step, really anywhere in between. I don't have to be as precise with that bend. So it's easier and it's more expressive because I can really get in those in-between notes. If I bend any of the other notes on this shape of the pentatonic scale, for instance, the B string, I really have to make sure that I match that next pitch. If I bend it flat, it's not so good. So then there are 3 main types of bends. The first is the bend and release. So here you hear the pitch go up and go back down. And this is what most people start with. It sounds like this. So you heard the note go up, you heard it come back down. So the next one is a bend and mute. Here I bend the string up and then mute it out so that you don't hear it coming back down. The last bend is the pre-bend and release. So here I bend the string before I ever pluck it. And then after I pick the string, I release the bend. So you hear the note come down, but you don't hear it go up. So I bend the note up, but don't pick it. And then I pick it. So you only hear the pitch come down. So those are the 3 types of bend. Bend and release, the bend and mute, and the pre-bend release. On the pentatonic scale shape where the root is on the A string, here at the 12th fret, that best bend note is now on the B string ring finger note. So here are those same 3 bends on that string. Bend and release, bend mute, and the pre-bend. Here Here are those three bends in a musical context. First, bend and release. Now, bend, mute. Notice I can hold the note out or play the note short. Here I'm going to hold it out and then mute it. You still won't hear it come back out. Here's the pre-bend release. Bend release. Bend mute. You should make sure to put all three of those types of bends into your playing. Next is the bend, release, pull-off combination. This is a combination that gets used all the time by guitar players. Here I bend the string up, release it back down, and then pull off to my index finger. So I'm getting three notes with one pick. Here's that phrase in a musical context. Here are some Chuck Berry style guitar phrases. These are in widespread use today. So the first one, I'm bending the 7th fret of the G string, and then with my index finger kind of barring the 5th fret at the B and E strings, and I'm playing those notes. A variation of that gets used a lot is playing these two notes at the same time, like this. Another variation skips the B string. So I bend the G string, go to the E string, and then pull off from the 8th fret to the 5th fret on the B string. The fourth variation is very similar to that, but I don't skip the B string. I go straight up, so G string, B string, E string, and then pull off on the B string. Here's what those sound like in a musical Here's a simple three-note Stevie Vaughan, Freddie style bend phrase. It's a very simple phrase. I bend the G string up and mute it, and then play the 5th fret of the G string to the 7th fret of the D string. And it really sounds good if you play those last two notes together really quickly, like. Here's a bend trick. Sometimes people call this the train bend because it sounds kind of like a train going by. Here I'm going to bend the 7th fret of the G string up while putting my pinky on the 8th fret of the B string and not bending that string. And you hear that has a really nice rub to it. It has a great tension that gets resolved when you get up to the top of the bend. I can do that here in this shape of the pentatonic. But here it's on the B string bend at the 15th fret, and my pinky is also on the 15th fret. And I can play those two notes together, or I can play them separate. Okay, this next one is not a bending phrase, but it's very much related to the train bend, and I call it the train slide. So instead of bending, to get that sound, you slide the G string note up and let it ring with that same 8th fret B string note. And I can play these separately or together. So here's what those train bends and slides sound like in context. Last up are unison bends. So in a unison bend, I bend a note on one string, in this case the G string, 7th fret, and I'm bending that note up a whole step to match the 9th fret of the G string or the 5th fret of the B string. It's the same note. But if I hold that 5th fret of the B string, you can hear there's a lot of tension, and that tension gets resolved when the notes match. Has a very similar effect as the train bend. I can do that on the B and E strings as well. Here I'm doing it with my pinky, 8th fret to match the 5th fret of the high E string. So I put these 3 fingers on the B string. And if I know the notes on the B string or the E string that are in the pentatonic scale, I can move that bend around. Jimi Hendrix used that technique a lot. Here's what it sounds like in a musical context. Those are some great common bending phrases that you should add to your vocabulary.